The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is The Yaron Brook Show.
All right, welcome everybody to The Yaron Brook Show. This Tuesday nighttime over here, 8 p.m. But we're going off of daylight saving time, so you are going off of daylight savings. As of next week, our clocks will be better aligned because I will be basically on the same time zone as East Coast, which will make life a little easier. But anyway, hope you're having a great week. A lot of cancel culture, crazy leftists, anti-racism stuff on the show today. So enough of all that optimism that I was trying to project on Sunday. Back to the world in which we live and every day. Some of you wanted more philosophy and epistemology on the Yaron Brook Show. Well, today we'll do a little bit in a sense of epistemology because this math stuff is a direct assault on epistemology, on math, on reason, on logic, on rationality. Brian, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, the John Mackey debate is out. You can watch it on my channel. It's available. I posted it this afternoon. It's also available on the Reason TV channel. You can watch it in either one. I prefer you watch it on my channel. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. I think you'll find it stimulating. I think you'll find it interesting. And yeah, let me know what you think. It looks like there's going to be a rematch. John has agreed to do a rematch of the debate, so we'll probably be doing the debate again in July in South Dakota, at Freedom Fest in South Dakota. John and I will be redoing the debate, so I will get you more information on that once I know it. I don't have the exact date or exactly when, but it is like the 20th to the 24th is Freedom Fest, and we'll find out when the exact date is the debate. But it's at Rapid City, South Dakota. So we'll be doing it again. I'm hoping John will agree to do it. Also, maybe we can get him to agree to do it in Austin, Texas sometime. That'll be fun. So I'll work on that as well. What, Alicia just passed out? Why are you passing out? Don't pass out. So yes, exciting. I think that's exciting. I think that's good. I think John brings a good audience. And oh my God, somebody says yesterday was the 50th anniversary of the Ali Fraser fight. Sorry, I have no interest. Boxing, violent sports generally, I don't find interesting. I'm not interested in boxing. I'm not interested in all the other fight stuff. Uninterested. Anyway, I mean, Ali is an interesting character. Muhammad Ali is an interesting character, but the actual fights I find uninteresting. Let's see. Any other announcements I need to give you? I don't think so. Again, I think you'll enjoy the debate. I think you'll find it interesting. I think you'll find the differences between me and John interesting. I think the differences more substantial than they are superficial. I think it's basically the difference between somebody who believes in free markets but who upholds the conventional morality of altruism and somebody who believes in a radical new morality. Michael asked, what's the debate? Is John Mackey fundamentally one of the bad guys? I don't think he's fundamentally one of the bad guys. I think he's innocent. I think, I think he is what he is. But no, I mean, I think he is doing harm to the cause in spite of himself, in spite of advocating for capitalism, in spite of trying to convince people of capitalism, I think he actually does harm to the cause, because I think he actually convinces people of the opposite. And I think you see that. I did a show, I don't know, a month, 2 months ago, about his defense of capitalism on the Joe Rogan show, and I think the same thing. You saw the same thing there. He's just not really advancing this, right? He's not really advancing the cause, because, and this is the thing about libertarians. You cannot win the battle for capitalism without winning the battle for egoism. Not sustainable, not over time. Right? Michael asks if I can review Saving Ryan. I think my going rate for movie reviews, although I owe one already, so I need to get to it. I will. I'm going to try to watch it this week. I keep delaying, but I will watch it. A Real Genius, I still owe that rate, but I think the going rate for movie reviews is $500. I haven't seen Private Ryan in many years. I'm not a particular fan of Saving Private Ryan for a variety of reasons. I can get into, but I'd have to watch the movie again to do a proper review. I don't think it's that exciting. I don't think it's that interesting, and I don't think it's that good of a movie. Review A Price Above Rubies. $500, guys. $500, and I'd be happy to review A Price Above Rubies. It's a movie I actually like, so it's definitely worth reviewing. $500 for any movie review. You can do it on here in the Super Chat, or even better, you can just send me the $500 on paypal.me/YaronBrook Show. Okay. Okay, let's jump right into it. So there's a story going around about this proposal for a new way of teaching math, primarily a new way of teaching math to black kids, although I'm sure this has implications to teaching math to all kids. And it is a proposal that is very much, very much being embraced, or at least being looked at carefully in the state of Oregon. The state in which Portland is a major city, so not too surprising how leftist and nutty they are. A proposal that is being reviewed seriously in Oregon in terms of an anti-racist way of teaching mathematics. Now, just to give you a quick review of anti-racism. Anti-racism is the view that basically all white people are racists. And whether they know it or not, whether they admit it or not, whether they act in any kind of explicitly racist way or not, because the institutions, the structure, the infrastructure, the world in which we live is inherently racist. And that the only way to overcome racism is basically to completely completely dismantle all the social, political, economic institutions that exist today, because all of them were created by white people with the goal and the effect of suppressing black people. And that is the essential characteristic of the world in which we live. And that colorblindness is racist, because they would argue you cannot be colorblind because you're inherently racist, and because color does matter. So to be colorblind is to evade and deny reality. And that we are all, as if you're white, collectively responsible for the racism of the past. And if you're black, you're collectively a victim of the racism of the past, whether you have suffered any racism or not as an individual. So it is a racist, collectivistic, anti-civilization, particularly Western civilization, anti-capitalist, anti-freedom, really, view of looking at the world, which turns every question, every issue, into an issue of race. Because every issue, every question has been answered by certain people. Those certain people had a particular skin color, therefore a particular race according to their definition of race. And therefore, whatever answers they gave were not related to truth. Indeed, truth, objective truth doesn't exist. Truth and your answers can only be understood in the context of the race to which you belong, the color of the skin you happen to have. So it is a system that denies objective reality. It's a system that basically is a racist system in the sense that it judges people not by the content of their character or the content of their minds, not by the whether they are pursuing truth or not. It judges them based on whether they're white or black or green or yellow or purple. They are determined. We are all determined by our race, whether we know it or not, whether we'll admit it or not. Right? So it's a completely deterministic theory that says that you as an individual don't matter, don't count, or insignificant. You're basically determined by the collective to which you happen to be brought into, a collective that is determined by your belonging is determined by the color of your skin. Right? Now, what does this have to do with math? Well, not only does it have to do with math, it has to do with pedagogy generally. It turns out that most of the math we study as we study it, was discovered by white people, white men particularly. Now, not all of it. Like the concept of zero, the idea of zero, was actually discovered in India and used in India. Then the Arabs or the Muslims learned of it, transferred it to the Middle East. The Arabs used the concept of zero. And the Europeans learned about zero, and therefore the decimal system, from the Arabs in, I think, the time of Aquinas in the 1300s, 1200s or 1300s, came in from Arabia, but again discovered by some mathematicians in India. A lot of Arab mathematicians. I think India during that period or pre that period, in the early part of the BC era, there was quite a bit of mathematics going on there. Remember, India was impacted by Greek philosophy, as was much of that part of the world, because of Alexander the Great's conquests. And of course, Alexander was a pupil of Aristotle and brought much of those ideas to places like Iran and to the outskirts, or at least the borders of India. But there was math in India. Of course, the Greeks had mathematics, but the Greeks are viewed as white. Who knows what ethnic group they belonged to, or what exactly the composition of their genes was. There's some evidence to suggest that the ancient Greeks were not related to the Greeks of today. That in spite of the pride the Greeks today have in the ancient Greeks, they're not the same people. Well, you shouldn't have pride in your ancestry. That's the easiest way to get around it. But it turns out that, Leibniz and Newton, the discoverers of calculus, were white men. And most of the discoveries over the last 300, 400 years in mathematics was a product of people who happen to be European and happen to be men. That makes math biased. That makes math be a reflection of reality as seen by somebody with a particular skin tone. And somebody with a different skin tone might actually see math differently. That is, 1 + 1 might not actually be 2. Now, it's obviously 2 to me because, my skin tone is kind of bright, but maybe if my skin tone was darker, it would. This is the kind of stuff that white supremacists usually talk about. And indeed, white supremacists, I think, would celebrate this new, let me see, what's it called? I've got the document in front of me. It's called A Pathway to Equitable. Notice the word equity again? Notice the word equity? To equitable, we've talked about this before and how they've used now equitable, equity, in other words, fairness, morality, in everything that they do in this new egalitarian culture. They don't talk about equality, they talk about equitable. A pathway to equitable math instruction, dismantling racism in mathematics instruction. Now, who knew? I didn't know that there was racism in mathematical instruction. I mean, probably the biggest tragedy of this, no, not the biggest tragedy. The biggest tragedy is the kids who are actually going to have to study this stuff. But one of the big tragedies of all of this is that when you read this stuff, you go, if this is racism, racism is garbage. If this is what they consider white supremacist, then there is no white supremacist. And that, I think, is tragic and sad, because I do believe there is such a thing as racism. I do believe there are racists in America. I do believe that not just these kind of racists, the anti-racist racist, but white supremacists. I think white supremacy is alive and well in the United States. I think that, white nationalism and the alt-right are alive and well and have grown in power and grown in influence and grown in numbers over the last, 20 years. But when you read this stuff, when you read this as a response to racism, all this will do is cause many people to dismiss racism as a problem that doesn't, as a non-existent problem. And it'll turn some people into racists. Because this stuff is really, really, really bad. And if you take it seriously, whether you're white or you're black, you're going to become a racist of one kind or another. And yes, white supremacy is alive and well. You saw it in Charlottesville. You saw it all over the place. All over the place. You saw it on January 6th in the mob attack on the Capitol. You saw people there wearing white supremacist, anti-Semitic T-shirts and slogans and all of that. And it wasn't like the crowd shunned them. Not that I'm saying the whole crowd was racist, but it's not like the crowd said, "Oh, you guys, we don't want to be with you guys. You guys are racist. We don't want to have anything to do with racists." No, they marched along with them. They hung out with them. It was quite notable. And it's alive and well, and it's big, and it's significant. And if you deny it, you're part of the problem. You really are part of the problem. But the solution, of course, is not this anti-racist racism. So let's look at this. Now, this is the thing about math. For the most part, and granted, there are plenty of philosophers, I'm sure, and philosophical theories out there that deny objectivity completely, and reject the whole notion of objectivity and reject the whole notion of reality and our ability to know reality, and therefore view math as just an arbitrary construct of our minds. And therefore, by the way, open up completely to this idea of black math versus white math versus whatever math. But for the most part, relative to every other realm of human knowledge, math is typically a realm in which people accept the idea of objectivity, the idea of truth, the idea of right and wrong answers. And more than that, most people get that math is practical. You can add money, you can subtract money, you can do that at the cash register, and it's practical, and it works. And everybody pretty much acknowledges it, and nobody goes to cash register saying, you gave me too little change because I think 2 + 2 = 27. so therefore I should get X. And nobody does that. Nobody lives that. Pretty much people accept the objectivity of addition and subtraction. And they understand that buildings are built, with math. And to the extent that they don't fall down, it depends on how good the math is. Spaceships are launched into space with math. And they accept generally that is there's an objective standard there that helps prevent the spaceship from just crashing. So math is the one realm that epistemologically, seems to be a general view that, this reflects reality, this reflects truth, this is workable, this actually functions in reality the way it's supposed to. Now, it's more than just math. People don't cross the street saying, well, who knows if the car's coming or not. It could be just a mirage. I could be a brain in a vat, and therefore nothing will happen to me. Nobody actually does that. Generally, in day-to-day life, people act as if knowledge is objective and reality is real. A is A. And things act according to some, causal factors. Get hit by a car, you're going to suffer. People get this. Right? But of the intellectual pursuits, math, even more than science, you get debates, right? You get debates about evolution, not legitimate debates, but you get debates. People disagree about evolution. You get debates about physics. I mean, there are even flat earthers out there, though it's not even worth mentioning them because that is so absurd. But you get debates about physics. But in terms of day-to-day, the kind of math that kids learn in school, there really isn't a debate. There's no creationism as applied to math. There's no, flat earthers when it comes to math. Well, except there is now, it turns out. And it's right here in this document that is being supposedly taken seriously in the state of Oregon and might be applied in some schools. And even if it's not applied in the state of Oregon, this is an approach, this is an attitude that academics are encouraging people, school boards, school superintendents, curriculum committees, an attitude that people are being encouraged to take. So here's what they say. And this is under the guise of dismantling white supremacy in math classrooms. We see white supremacy culture show up in the mathematics classroom, even as we carry out our professional responsibilities outlined in the California Standards of Teaching Profession. Using these standards, a framework, we see white supremacy culture in the mathematics classroom can show up when. So these are places in which white supremacy shows up. Now, you would think that this would say something like black kids are discouraged from taking math classes. Black kids are graded differently than white kids. Hispanic kids are told that they don't know any math and to go study English or something. I don't know. You'd think that those would be the things that they identify as signs of white supremacy in the math classroom. No. I mean, those are obviously racist type of things, but it's not what the anti-racists are concerned with. Maybe because it's really, really rare that teachers would say stuff like that in the world in which we live in today. 50 years ago, very prevalent. But in the world today, while I think white supremacy is on the rise and growing, it's still in the underground. It's still considered something that you don't really talk about, and certainly not something you would express in a classroom. So what do they view as expressions of white supremacy in the classroom, in mathematics classroom? Well, the number one thing they cite is, and I'm reading straight out of their document, the focus on getting the right answer. I mean, I'll let that sink a little bit. The focus on getting the right answer is in their view, a sign that there's white supremacy around. The focus is on getting the right answer. Now, this is the thing about math. There's a right answer, and there's a wrong answer. 2 plus 2 equals 4. It doesn't equal 5. Now, yes, you can create circumstances where, in a different context, 2 plus 2 equals 1. Right? Like in set theory, in particular mathematical constructions, where the plus sign means something else and the 1 or the 2 means something else. But then it's on you to explain the construct. 2 plus 2 equals 4 in math, in straight addition, in the way all of us understand what 2e means and what another 2 means. If you're changing the context, which you can, and you do in mathematics, it's on you to explain that context. Now, this is not just an undermining of, the whole idea of math education. This is undermining of education, period. Undermining of reason, of logic, of our senses, of our ability to think. Not only is there a right answer in math, but there are right answers in almost every field. Reality is what it is. It's not subject to your genes. It's not subject to your whim. It's not subject to your wishes. There is a right answer. Is this an iPhone? There's a right answer to that. Yes, it is. It's not a Samsung. Every day, you have to make decisions about what's right and what's wrong, what's right and what's false. To breed in kids, and we're talking about primary school kids, the skepticism of reality, of existent, is just plain evil and wrong and epistemologically unbelievably destructive of the child's ability to ever think again. If you want to create a class of students who cannot think, a class of members of society who cannot add, who cannot think, who cannot be logical, who cannot reason, this is the way to do it. And if you're teaching this to black kids, then you can create a class of black kids who can't do this. Wow. And who are you hurting? Is any white supremacist going to care if black kids are taught that there's no such thing as getting an answer right? No, of course not. They're going to celebrate. Here's the second one. And there are a lot of these, but here's the second one. This is, again, a sign of white supremacy culture in mathematics classroom when independent practice is valued over teamwork or collaboration. This is math. One of the virtues in objectivism, but it's not a virtue in objectivism. It's a virtue in life, in living, in being able to live. It's a requirement of survival, is that you learn to think for yourself. You have to discover for yourself as a child that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Now, people can help you. People can guide you, although that kind of math in a Montessori classroom, kids have figured out by themselves without a teacher's help. That's the whole point of Montessori, that these simple, concrete examples have already been taught. So first you're taught there is no right answer. Then you're taught that knowledge comes from the group. Knowledge comes from collaboration. Knowledge comes from teamwork. Now, I'm not against teamwork and collaboration. They're wonderful things. But it's still true that you have to independently figure it out in your own mind. Otherwise, you don't know it. So now, we're creating some form of group consciousness, but there is no right answer. So whatever the group thinks is fine. Here's another one. You know there's white supremacy culture in the mathematics classroom when students are tracked into courses, pathways, and within the classroom. So the idea that you might, if you study, algebra, then you're ready for more advanced algebra, and then ultimately you're ready for calculus. And we'll get to this. They really find that offensive. But the fact that you're tracked, the fact that somebody keeps a record of that fact, the fact that somebody's monitoring your progress, and maybe even giving you advice on what the next class should be and how you should progress through the structure of mathematics, that is wrong. There's one related to this. Let me just find the one that's related to this. Yeah, there's one about the fact that math is taught linearly, that you have to know one subject in order to go to the next, They find that offensive and a sign of white supremacy, that there's structure, and it's linear, it's sequential. Right? So they're attacking the fact that there's right or wrong. They're attacking the independent mind. They're attacking hierarchy of knowledge, the fact that knowledge is hierarchical. That you first need to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division before you do algebra. And you better master algebra before you do calculus. One of the things that really expresses white supremacy is when teachers teach mathematics the way they learned it. So if a teacher teaches math the way she learned it, or he learned it, that's racist. It's racist. It's racist. To think that teachers are teachers and students are learners. That's just so hierarchical. That is so ridiculous. Now notice an intersection here between this anti-racist stuff and progressive education. John Rawls' theory of progression, not John Rawls. Dewey's views on progressive education. Education is not to teach, to convey knowledge, to convey methodology of knowing. This is about education, is about socialization. It's not about teachers teaching. It's about students interacting. It's about socialization. So there's a heavy emphasis. If Dewey has not been successful enough in destroying American education over the last 100 years, well, here we're going to give him another boost, this time in the name of anti-racism. Oh, here it is. It's racist. A sign of white supremacy. When math is taught in a linear fashion and skills are taught sequentially, without consideration of prerequisite knowledge. I don't know what that even means. The whole point of sequentially is to take into account prerequisite knowledge. They consider it white racism, white supremacy. If good math teaching, good in quotes, of course, is considered an antidote for mathematical inequality of blacks, Latinx, and multilingual students. Well, of course, what you need is good math teaching. See, the way to provide equitable math education is not to improve the teaching of minority kids, which I'd be all for. Improve teaching for everybody. It's a good thing. No. It's the very topic, it's the very way it's taught, it's the very nature of the subject that is inherently racist. So the very nature, the very structures, this is what systemic racism means, must be deconstructed, must be taken apart, must be destroyed. Our very means of knowledge as human beings must be dismantled. The fact that students are required to show their work. You remember when your math teacher said, you can't just give me an answer. You have to show the work. I got into trouble all the time because I would just write down the answer and they would want you to show the work. That's racist, it turns out. It turns out my teachers forcing me to show the work were actually instituting a white supremacist methodology in the classroom. I didn't know. I mean, maybe they were all anti-Semites. Grading practices that are focused on lack of knowledge. That is, if you grade based on people's knowledge, that's racist. I'm not making this up. You could make this up. Somebody the other day told me, when the intellectuals talk in Atlas Shrugged, it's not realistic. I mean, in all the reviews of Atlas Shrugged said, no, the villain's unreal. Nobody talks like that. Ayn Rand couldn't, in her most darkest moment, have imagined this. Anyway, I mean, it truly is stunning that what we're seeing today is the complete abandonment of logic, reason, reality in the name of fighting racism. Who's going to suffer here? Black kids. Hopefully this will never be embraced by any educational institution. Hopefully this will never be used in the classroom. But if it is, we know who the victims of this will be. Will be kids who graduate from school with an inability to do basic math. Kids who graduate from school with a built-in skepticism of everything, of reality. Kids who know nothing, who cannot think, who are not fit to work, who are not fit to man a cash register. Never mind design a computer. Never mind send a man to Mars. Kids who are complete incompetents, who only know what their team has told them, who only acknowledge the validity of what the tribe asserts, who cannot think. I mean, in the deepest sense cannot think, not in a sophisticated, abstract sense, in the deepest and in the simplest sense cannot think. It leads to nihilism, it leads to crime, it leads to unemployment, it leads to self-destruction, it leads to the destruction of black kids, if they're the ones who take this. Any kid who is exposed to this garbage. John McWhorter, who is excellent, and I encourage you guys follow. John McWhorter happens to be black, but he is a linguist professor at Columbia University, I think, Columbia. And he has a Substack, like everybody these days. So I encourage you to subscribe to his Substack. You can look for johnmcwhorter.substack.com. And he has written on this. He's written some good stuff on this. He doesn't completely go for the full implication of it, but what he writes is absolutely excellent. Here's some of the conclusions he says. This is from his summary of this document. He says, A focus on getting the right answer is perfectionism, or either or thinking. White supremacist, either or thinking. A or non-A. You can't think in those terms. Right, wrong. Can't think in those terms. That's white supremacy. The idea that teachers and students are learning is wrong. I just talked about that a minute ago, right? That's straight out of Dewey, but one step further. To think of it as a problem, that the expectations you have of students are not met, is racist. So if you're a teacher and you have certain expectations of your students and they don't meet them, they can't pass the test. To think that's a problem, to think maybe we need to be better teachers, meant that we do something different, meant we get better at what we're doing. That's racist. Because how can you have expectations when there's no right answer? How can you have expectations when it's not either or? By what standard do you grade a test? By what standard do you evaluate your students? By what standard do you create expectations? He says to teach math in a linear fashion with skills taught in sequence is racist. He says, he gives another example of what they consider racist, to value procedural fluency. Now here you have to get a translation, because what the hell is procedural fluency? Procedural fluency means knowing how to do fractions and long division. To value that, actually knowing, over what they call conceptual knowledge is racist. Now what is conceptual knowledge? Conceptual knowledge is more to know about the history of math, the sociology of math, the race of the mathematician who discovered the particular form of math. So what's important with math for black kids is to try to do it. Try to do it. Not to actually do it. Again, there's no right answers. To require students to show their work is racist. Requiring students, this is a good one, I like this one. This one was not on the list, but it's somewhere else in the document. Document's a long document, so you can find a lot of stuff there. Requiring students to raise their hand before speaking, quote, can reinforce paternalism and power hoarding, in addition to breaking the process of thinking, learning, and communicating. So that's right, it breaks the process. If I've got a thought in my mind, if I don't blur it out immediately, if I actually stop and raise my hand, I lose the flow. And therefore, it's breaking the process of thinking, learning, and communicating. Everybody should just be able to yell out, shout out, speak out. To hell with raising hands. And raising hands is just, it just gives the teacher power. And the teacher shouldn't have power. The teacher should be the student's equal. After all, a teacher's not a teacher. A student is not a learner. Everybody's learning from one another. They're all equals. Egalitarianism. So, paternalism, power hoarding, those evil teachers who hoard all the power. McWhorter writes, you may wonder if this is a cartoon, but no, he writes, this is real. This is actually what this document tells us again and again. This, folks, is critical race theory. That's right. This is critical race theory. By the way, one of the things black kids should learn about math is they should learn a lot about black mathematicians. They should, for example, spend time learning the traditional Yoruba, I don't know where Yoruba is, Yoruba approach to numbers. It turns out the Yorubas use base 20. Base 20. They should learn the history, the sociology, the race of the mathematicians. Whether the math is right or wrong, whether they are true or not true answers, Whether calculus actually solves real world problems, that's not relevant. What's relevant is the color of the skin of the people who invented or discovered calculus. What's important is what some tribe who never actually applied the math to anything important, as far as I can tell, and maybe I'm missing something, how they do addition and subtraction. Much more important. How we build spaceships to Mars. How we actually build computers, build buildings, build skyscrapers, build automobiles. None of that is important. What's important is race. What's important is that these kids are oppressed and that they know it. What's important is, I guess, that these kids will know nothing when they graduate. Will be ignorant. Will not be able to make a living. Will be stuck. Now, the better kids, the smarter kids, the more ambitious kids will probably learn some math by themselves. But not very well, because there's a reason why we have teachers. And maybe if their parents have money, they'll send them to some kind of tutors or whatever, if the parents don't buy into this nonsense. But most of these kids will just never know any math. They will grow up knowing that they are victims. They will grow up knowing that they're entitled. They will grow up unable to get a job, unable to hold a job, unable to do anything, unable to do the fundamental mental work necessary for human survival. And that is a crime. That is evil. There's nothing more evil than this. I mean, the only really hope is that this is so ludicrous, so ridiculous, so pathetic, so insane, that nobody's going to actually do it. I mean, one wonders who are the people who write this? What kind of, quote, thinking they engage in. But this is the divorcing of morality from reality, the divorcing of facts, truth from reality. This is about power. This is about victimhood. This has nothing to do with mathematics. And this is going to be at the expense of a generation of young people. So, something to be fought. And if you live in Oregon, this is something worth writing letters to editor, getting the word out there, letting parents know that this is the crap. Because most parents in these communities would think this is stupid and offensive and disgusting and ridiculous. They want their kids to be successful. They're parents, after all. All right. Don't forget to like the show before you leave, or while you're hanging around and you've got nothing else to do, just press the like button. It really helps with the algorithms. The more interaction the show has, the more likes it has, the more likely it is to do well out there. Don't forget to share the show if you found it interesting and if you found it valuable. Share it. Let people know that the show exists. And, of course, if you're not a subscriber to the show, please subscribe. There is a subscribe button. There's also a little bell button. If you press the bell, that'll provide you with notification every time we go live, and you will be able to hear the show live, or at least know that the show is going on live, and be able to choose whether you want to listen live or not. In addition, you can, of course, support the show. You can support the show on a monthly basis, which is fantastic because it gives me visibility into revenues going into the future. You can do that by going to yaronbrookshow.com/support, yaronbrookshow.com/support. You can make your contribution there anywhere from $2 to $500. If you do a $500 a month contribution, you get one-on-one sessions with me, half an hour, one-on-one once a month. And, of course, you get to support the show in a significant way. And if you can afford it And if you think the show provides you with value that is equivalent to $500 a month, that is fantastic, and I very much appreciate it. And of course, you contribute dramatically to the continued robust future of the Yaron Brook Show. But of course, you can do anything for $500 to $2 to do $2, and there's a variety of different benefits you get at the different levels. You can do the same thing at Patreon, on Subscribestar, and on Locals. And of course, you can use the Super Chat feature here. We've raised significant money on the Super Chat. It's been a great tool for supporting the show, so I encourage you to use it. It is one of the 2-3 most lucrative ways for the show to fund our activities and to fund what we do. So if you like the debate, if you watched the debate that I did with John Mackey, if you haven't, it's on my channel. You can watch it now. But if you haven't watched that debate, do so, please. Give it a thumbs up, give it a thumbs down, make a comment, share it. It would be great to see that shared across social media. I think it was a great debate. Of course, by making a contribution to the show, you are making it possible for me to do debates like that. They pay me, but they don't pay me a lot for these kind of debates. So, it takes up a couple of days really to get to the location, to do the debate, to fly back home. It's a 2-day thing, and the pay is not that great. So anything you can do to support the show will, of course, go towards me doing more of these debates. I'm already probably scheduled to do another John Mackey debate in July, and I'm hoping to do one in the fall as well. So I'm hoping to do a series of debates with John Mackey on this issue. And you can help make that happen by supporting the show. All right. I have one more topic I want to talk about. Not a lot of Super Chat questions at this point, but let's see. Maybe this is a Super Chat question about this. If we assume teachers are genuinely interested in the welfare of children, why would they teach kids things that will harm the children? The only reason I see is laziness or to make them 100% dependent on government. I think there are a few things. I agree. Teachers who are genuinely interested in the welfare of the children, and I think most teachers are, the only reason they would teach them real nonsense, I think there are two reasons. One is that they're lazy. Then, if they're lazy, can you really say they're genuinely interested in the welfare of children? I don't know. But I think many teachers are lazy, and they get the material from school district or whatever, the teacher guides, and they just teach it the way it's written, and they don't worry about it. They don't think about it. And I had teachers like that, and I'm sure some of you had teachers like that. Just went through the motions. I know a lot of university professors who get paid pretty well, and that's how they behave. But I think the second reason is they want to think of themselves as moral, and they evade the consequences to the kids. Their peers tell them this is right. Their intellectual leaders tell them this is right. The theoreticians at the college educational schools tell them this is right. Their professors, everybody tells them this is right. Who are they to go a different route? I mean, once in a while, you have these brave teachers who take an independent route, who actually teach the kids, who elevate the class, and are motivated by love of learning, love of knowledge, love of the children. And there's some good movies portraying teachers like that. I forget the names of the movies right now, but there are a number, probably at least a half dozen, maybe more, good movies portraying great teachers who, in spite of horrific circumstances of the school, of the kids, of whatever, are dedicated to teaching the kids and dedicated for the kids to rise to their fullest potential, and they get unbelievable results. But they go against the grain. They have to fight the administrators. They have to fight the teachers union. They have to stand by me as a good example. Lean on me as a good example. Dead Poets Society is a mixed example. I've got problems with that movie. But they have to fight with their intellectual leadership. They have to fight with the powers to be. Why are they showing off the other teachers, the lazy teachers? They're doing all this work. To sue with love is a great example of that, absolutely. Stand and deliver. Yeah. So I'd say it's fear of what others will think of them, laziness, and for some of them, it's just stupidity. They're just not that smart. They're just not that smart. You can see how the left uses bigotry charge as a tactic, but why then do you seem to almost accept it, talking about a rise in white supremacists? Because just because the left uses bigotry as a tactic doesn't mean bigotry doesn't exist. It doesn't exist the way the left thinks it exists. But my job is not to be anti-left. It's not my job. It's not the way I see the world. It's not my function in life. My function in life is to discover the truth, to talk about the truth, to discuss with you the truth. And the fact is that there is white supremacists. The people who marched in Charlottesville and the people who supported the people who marched in Charlottesville are white supremacists. When they march and say, Jews will not replace us, when they talk about blood and soil, that's white supremacists. That's the reality. You want to evade reality? You want to ignore reality? You want to pretend it doesn't exist? Fine. I can't, and I won't. I'm about telling the truth. So like everything in life, well, not like everything in life, like a lot of political issues, the left is wrong. That doesn't mean that every issue at every level, in every way, they are wrong. This country was founded with sin, slavery. This country did experience horrific, barbaric, subhuman racism, primarily in the South, but also in the North, until the 1960s. Racism that was institutionalized, systematized, and part of government policy, certainly in the South, and again, to some extent, a large extent in the North as well. Redlining was also in the North, and redlining was a government policy. This is not mythology. Just because the left says this doesn't make it false. The question is always, is it true or is it false? If the left calls me a racist, they're wrong. If the left called Richard Spencer a racist, they're right. He is a racist. The fact that the left says it doesn't make it wrong. See, your job as a thinker, if you choose to be a thinker, and you have to choose it, is not to reflexively be against whatever the other tribe says. But it's to evaluate what is right and what is wrong, what is true and what is false. In reality. Not because the left says it, not because the right says it, but because it either exists or it doesn't. It's either true or it's not. What did we say? We made fun of one of the things that they think there's a right answer, that right answers are a sign of white supremacy. No. There are such things as right answers. There is such thing as the truth. And as a thinker, it's your moral responsibility to discover that truth. Not to just go by your gut because the left said it must be wrong. The left is wrong about systemic racism, but it's not wrong about everything it says about the history of this country. It's not wrong about the fact that there's rising racism in this country. Those are all phenomena. Now, I think much of the rising, and I've said this over and over again, much of the rising racism on the right in this country is a response to the explosion of racism on the left. That is, I consider critical race theory a racist theory. A racist theory. And one of the responses to this leftist racist theory is racism on the right. In politics, for every action, there is a reaction. And when the left turns racist, emphasizes race, talks about race, identifies us in terms of race, makes a big deal of race, that's what the leftist intellectuals do, then people on the right are going to say, we can play that game. And you see an increase in racism on the right. Whites start feeling marginalized, start feeling attacked, start feeling superior. Starts feeling superior. And that leads them towards their own racism. And that's how these things get out of control, completely out of control. No racism on the right. What was Charlottesville? Was that the left marching? Not by anybody's definition of what right and left are. The idea that there's no racism on the right means you buried your head in the sand. I mean, I've seen racism against me on the right in the form of anti-Semitism. I've seen anti-Semitism in the South years ago, and certainly today. What is the Unite the Right rally? It was called the Unite the Right rally. Not Unite the Left rally, not Unite the Center rally, not Unite the Wacko rally. It was called Unite the Right rally, and it was a racist rally. And yeah, anti-Semitism among whites is microscopic. Really? Really? You should ask Ben Shapiro about that. And when he does a show on the alt-right, the kind of vitriol that is hurled against him because he's a Jew. But no. I mean, yeah, it's... So, Richard, what do you think? Who do you think was at the Unite the Right rally? You think that the people marching there, the Richard Spencers of the world, you think they are leftists? What about Nick Fuentes? Nick Fuentes is an anti-Semite and a racist. Is he a figment of my imagination? Does he have a big following on YouTube? Is that a figment of my imagination? Or is he a plant? Or is he a plant from the left? He's really I mean, you guys are detached from reality, and you're so focused on hating the left that you cannot see what is around you. You cannot see the reality that is around you. Yes, Charlottesville was one event almost 4 years ago. January 6th attack on Capitol Hill was one event just a few months ago. The guy who attacked the synagogue in Pittsburgh and then attacked Jews in California, that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah, I mean, sure, we can all take one event here, one event, the rhetoric of some leaders, not all maybe, but some leaders of the Proud Boys, and on and on and on. You want examples, really? You want examples? I mean, the fact that you need examples just shows that you've taken your head and you buried it deep in the sand. And I know I'm offending my listeners again, and you guys get upset when I do this. But, it's a fact. You guys are literally, in the name of hating on the left, you're ignoring reality. Yeah, woke is everywhere. But in the name of wokeness, the real enemy, your real enemy, we're supposed to evade reality. We're supposed to become the enemy. This is what will destroy this country. This is what will destroy this country. That you become exactly like the people you claim that you hate. Which is people who evade reality, behave as if you're a tribe, ignore truth doesn't matter, and focus on one thing and one thing only, which is to defeat your enemy. And you will discover that by doing that, you will become the enemy. You will become the enemy. So yes, sorry, but you're all my enemy. Those of you who are critical race theory leftists, and those of you apologists for the racism of the right, on the right, you're all my enemy. And your reality's enemy, your Ayn Rand's enemy, you are burying your head in the sand in terms of reality. Racism is racism is racism. Doesn't matter where it comes from. And I don't care if you're on the left or on the right. Right? If you're irrational, you're irrational. I don't care if you're on the left or the right. If you're immoral, you're immoral. I don't care if you're on the left or on the right. If you're anti-individualism, if you're anti-reason, if you're anti-reality, then that's where you are. That's what you are. That's who you are. The way to win is to focus on reality. The way to win is to focus on reason. The way to win is to focus on individualism. Because what are you fighting then? My collective versus their collective? Today, if you're on the left or on the right, you're irrational, the way I've defined them. You're irrational. All right. A few more tidbits about the irrationality of the left. You're apologist, yes. Anybody who denies there's racism on the right is an apologist for that racism. Anybody who denies that the right was at Charlottesville is an apologist for racism. Anybody who denies that there's collectivism, irrationality on the right is an apologist for collectivist and irrationality. That's what it means to be an apologist. It means to see it, ignore it, and go on. It means to accept the irrationality involved. All right. Man, you guys really motivate me to focus my vitriol on the right rather than on the left. I try to do shows focused on the left, and your response makes it obvious that that is futile and useless and a waste of time, that the real problem is people who pretend they are my allies and who actually are constantly making excuses and defending and protecting the evil on the right, which I think long-term is the evil that will take over. But anyway, because I feel like, I've got all these great examples of craziness on the left that is everywhere right now. Right now, it's everywhere. I thought some of these are pretty funny, so I thought that would be a good way, some more to add to what we've talked about. But it seems like, what's the point, right? Because the point is that you guys know all this stuff about the left. You're already convinced about this stuff on the left. I'm not teaching you or educating you or showing you or expanding your horizons in any way by slamming the left. It's all, some of you at least, all you do is obsess about the evil of the left. It's much more interesting and much more mind-expanding and much more provocative and much more to go after the right. Maybe I should start doing that again, and maybe that'll be more interesting and more fun, right? All right, some examples of craziness on the left. Tech CEO this last week got into trouble. He really triggered people when he implied that being out of shape impacted your work performance. People got very upset. I think it's body shaming. Can't do that. Can't expect people to actually be in shape. Or you can't actually say it. Everybody knows it, but you can't actually say it. That health is related to how you take care of yourself. Health is related to some extent, whether you're in shape or not. Health is related to work performance. Can't say that stuff. But this is the funny stuff. This is from another one of these Substacks that I really, really enjoy. You might like this. I recommend this. It's piratewires.com. piratewires.com. This guy is interesting. He works for Peter Thiel at Founders Fund. He's a Silicon Valley guy, and he likes to make fun. He likes to really go after what's going on in San Francisco. I learned a lot about how San Francisco has really, really become horrific to live in from him. And he has good stuff on cancel culture, but he also has other stuff. Some of it's not as good, but it's definitely worth reading. Piratewires with an S at the end.com. Anyway, somebody in the New York Times suggested that Pepe Le Pew. Do you remember Pepe Le Pew? Some of you might be old enough to remember Pepe Le Pew. Pepe Le Pew is a cartoon skunk. Supposedly from 75 years ago. I didn't know I was that old. Because I've seen Pepe Le Pew. Pepe Le Pew is is a cartoon skunk who flirts, is constantly looking for a woman, constantly looking for a mate. And he flirts with anything. He's French. He's got a heavy French accent. And he flirts, and he often, there's often this confusion. Is it a skunk, or is it a squirrel, or is it... It's funny. I thought it was funny when I was a kid. But according to the New York Times, Charles Blow, I guess, Pepe Le Pew has contributed to rape culture. Rape culture. I'm not making this up. I really am not making it up. Pepe Le Pew has contributed to rape culture. Speedy Gonzalez. Do you remember Speedy Gonzalez? Speedy Gonzalez was great. He was like the best superhero in cartoon form. Like, I used to watch Speedy Gonzalez all the time. It perpetuated racial stereotypes. I wonder what stereotype? That Mexicans are really fast? That they have accents? What is the stereotype that Speedy Gonzalez perpetuated? Yeah, arriba. Andale. It was great. I love Speedy Gonzalez. I used to anyway. I don't know what I'd think if I saw it today. And I watch Speedy Gonzalez, and I don't think I have any real stereotypes against Mexicans, Hispanics. Quite the contrary. I live in Puerto Rico, after all. The internet this week was divided over the question of whether or not Lola Bunny. Now, Lola, she's a bunny. She's a cartoon rodent. She's not even a bunny. Lola Bunny, a cartoon rodent from the 1996 Space Jam. I've seen the movie, but I can't remember Lola Bunny. So the internet was split, was divided, was undecided about whether she had been drawn in too sexy of a manner. Should the cartoon rodent, Lola Bunny, was she drawn in a too sexy manner? Now, I don't know what too sexy means. What does too sexy mean? On Twitter, one of my favorite cartoon figures of all time, Jessica Rabbit, was dragged into the mix. And the question was, were the illustrators of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when they portrayed Jessica Rabbit, who I had a crush on for a long time, were they critiquing sexism with their too busty cartoon femme fatale, or were they just a bunch of perverts? And maybe they were both. It's something when we reach a state where when our intellectuals are obsessed with and are getting moral cues from, the sex lives of cartoon animals. It's insane. But this is part of this whole attitude that exists today. Let's take Dr. Seuss. Now, we've got 6 books that have been excluded. The state has decided not to carry 6 books of Dr. Seuss, not to republish them, because there were racial insensitivities in them. Now, fine. The states, it's their right. They can do what they want. And indeed, if I remember right, there are some images that, yeah, probably a little inappropriate in Dr. Seuss from that perspective. Okay. But we can't have a conversation about it. We can't just redraw those characters and change them a little bit. We can't make any kind of modifications. We have to not publish the books. But it's not just that they don't publish the books. It's that they make a big announcement about it. They make it an enormous big deal. This massive virtue signaling to the world. And then eBay, I think, has felt left out from the whole cancel culture mayhem of the last few years. They've been left out of what, Twitter and others have done. eBay then decided to ban sale from individual to individual of used copies of these books. Why? If people voluntarily want to exchange these. Now remember, this is eBay. eBay on which you can find a used, in good shape, good binding of Mein Kampf, of lots of racist literature. But right now it's important, it's crucial that corporations, CEOs, intellectuals, business leaders, publishers signal their virtue to the world. Signal to the new inquisitors, the cultural inquisitors, that they are good people. Look, there's no question that some people are racist. I know some of you dispute that, but some people are indeed racist. Some material in Dr. Seuss books might be insensitive. And certainly the state isn't within their right to decide what the hell they want. But come on. Be adults. Have a spine. Talk about these things. The fact that CEOs, businessmen are so fearful today, so unbelievably fearful of standing up to these, I'll call them cultural inquisitors. They don't have torture chambers, but they can ruin your career. They demand confessions. Yes, I'm a racist, I apologize. And they can shape the culture in which we live. These are inquisitors with immense power. And yet today, the label thrown around of racist is making the term meaningless. And this is the real danger, because there are racists out there, including the people throwing around the term, who are racist. But they're making the term meaningless. A museum curator in San Francisco Modern Museum of Modern Art, not exactly my type of museum. He was criticized for not having enough non-white artists in the museum. And he said, that he agreed. But then he added that the museum will not stop collecting white artists entirely, even though he'll emphasize more non-white artists, because that would constitute reverse discrimination. What do you think happened to him? He was fired. There is no such thing as reverse discrimination. Reverse discrimination is a sign of racism. And this is like the new definition of racism, right? Non-whites, or in other words, people without power, cannot be racists. So racism has been redefined as treating people based on your race from a position of power. That's not what racism means. Racism only means the first part of it. So, the guy was fired. Now, the guy's a committed leftist. He's, after all, works at the Modern Museum of Modern Art. And he wanted more non-white artists. But you can't utter something like reverse racism. Reverse discrimination. Unacceptable. It's a firing offense. We live today in a world of cowards. The people who sit on the board of directors of that museum don't think he's a racist. But they're afraid. They're afraid of those who hold the moral high ground. They're afraid of the people who are manning the cultural inquisition. They're afraid of questioning, of challenging them. They're afraid of the consequence of themselves. They're afraid of being labeled racists. Instead of standing up to them, or just ignoring them, which would be ideal, they're groveling before them. And by groveling before them, they are taking us one step at a time towards the destruction of this civilization. Let me be clear. The critical race theorists won't win. Postmodernism cannot survive. Antifa has no project for governing. Not even for governing authoritarian, from an authoritarian perspective. I don't believe the left can win. Not in the long run. Not politically. It can have cultural influence. But the primary cultural influence is going to be to infuriate you. The primary cultural influence is going to turn you into supporters of a fascist right to combat them. And I see it on my chat right now. The effect of the left will be exactly the effect of the left in Weimar, Germany. The effect of the left in Weimar, Germany was to create the Nazis. And that's exactly what's going to happen in this country. By supporting, by being as irrational as they are, by being as disintegrated as they are, by being as evil as they are. And there is no more evil in ideology than egalitarianism and the way it's being applied by these monsters on the left. They are going to create a right that will crush them. And many good people, many people with good intentions will join that movement on the right. Not initially because they support it, not initially because they believe in it, but because they want to fight the evil of the left. Rez says, to be serious and break from all the funny comments. I actually don't believe there is such a thing as reverse racism. There is just racism. I get what is being applied, but I think it's dangerous racism. Yes, I agree with you. The comment he made was not reverse racism. I misspoke. The comment he made was reverse discrimination. And there you could also say this is just discrimination. But the idea here is that affirmative action, for example, is reverse discrimination. It's preferring the oppressed, the so-called oppressed group. It's giving the oppressed group preferential treatment. And that is discrimination for the side that's being oppressed. And that is reverse discrimination. And that is real. And there is value, I think. I'll have to think about it more. I think there is value in having that term. All right. Let's see. So that's, today really, you got a flavor of how wacky the world is becoming, how wacky the left is becoming, and how insane this is all becoming. Right. Let's take a look at some of these super chat questions. If you evade reality, reject relevant facts from your awareness for a long enough period of time, can you go insane? Is that what many cases of anxiety and insanity stem from? I want to be cautious here because I'm certainly not an expert on this. And yes, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know. So I'm just going to say that my suspicion is, and my inclination is, that the answer is yes. And indeed, Leonard Peikoff did a talk, a whole forum talk, exactly about this issue. I'm sure you can find it online, where he connected philosophy to mental health, and he connected this issue of evasion to schizophrenia and other diseases. And he quoted many people on the who are professionals, who are professional psychologists and psychiatrists, agreeing with that, basically affirming that, not in objectivist terminology, but basically agreeing with that view. So yes, and anxiety, I'm convinced of it. Think about anxiety. Anxiety is this constant sense of fear, of worry, of uncertainty. I mean, part of where that comes from is about not knowing reality, not being confident in truth, in facts, not being confident in your own reason, in your own ability to think. Right. And so evasion, which undermines your self-esteem, undermines your confidence in your own mind, is definitely related to something like anxiety, but also Leonard suggested, and I suspect he's right, to other forms of mental mental illness and mental problems, to insanity. You say the left can't win, which itself seems a misread of Dim in light of LP's Trump vote, but yet other times you've said the left has already won. Leonard Peikoff's Trump vote has nothing to do with Dim, so I don't know what, Leonard Peikoff's Trump vote, I assume, just like what my vote is a vote about our view of the best way to buy time. It has nothing to do with his perception of how Dim will play out. Read Dim. Now, it's true, the left doesn't have to be a D. The left doesn't have to be disintegrated. The left could be communist. Like communism is an integration. Communism is a misintegration, is an M2. I just don't think, and Leonard Peikoff in the Dim hypothesis agrees, that communism is going to be successful in the United States of America. And critical race theory is the attempt to create some kind of integration, but its effect is disintegration. And the point is that disintegration can't win. And egalitarianism, which I think is what the left is about, I don't think they're communists. I think communism, and again, Leonard Peikoff writes this in Dim, communism is a complement to them. Egalitarianism is much worse than communism. Egalitarianism is disintegrated, has no agenda, cannot be successful, is self-destructive, cannot sustain itself, cannot win. So it has to be a misintegration like communism. That would be a misintegration on the left. But I don't think there's any communist left. I don't think there's any communism left. So, in my view, it's about who will win in the end. Now, yes, the left is winning the cultural war. The left is winning at the universities. And the more they win, the more disintegrated our culture becomes. And the more disintegrated the culture becomes, the more ultimately long-term there will be a cry, a demand for a solution. And that solution is likely, I could be wrong, any one of us could be wrong, is likely to come from the right. It's likely to come from, and I'm not quoting, but I could quote out of them, it's likely to come from some combination of nationalism and religion. That's what the dim hypothesis says. Put aside Leonard Peikoff's vote for Trump. Right? I disagree with Leonard about the particular vote for Trump. I don't disagree with Leonard about them. And all you have to do is read the book rather than pretend that you know what it says. And if you read the book, it's very, very clear that at least when he wrote it, maybe he's changed his mind, I don't know. At least when he wrote it, he believed that the real threat was from religion and from nationalism. He called it a kind of a patriotic religionist. And I happen to think that he was right then, and that is still the number one. I think it could be combined with, as Jacob said, I think I've said this many times, that it'll be combined with environmentalism. I think it'll be a nationalist, religious, environmentalist movement that will actually bring authoritarianism to America. But this whole idea that the far left, cancel culture, and critical race theory is not a D, then you don't understand what disintegration means. It's the essence of a D. It's the essence of disintegration. Again, the dim hypothesis says that the left can have an M, but it would have to be something like communism. And other than Richard Wolff and a few crazy kids on campuses, communism has no impact on people. It's this critical race stuff. It's this cultural nonsense that people are enamored with. It's trans rights that are enamored with. Right? That's the disintegration. And people don't want disintegration, and that's why they ultimately will gravitate towards an M. And that M will be some authoritarian version. But it won't be the disintegration. The reason people want disintegration, many of it's because that's all they know, and because they can't think, because they were never taught to integrate. They were never taught to see the commonality between things. And part of it is because that's what the intellectuals are preaching. And part of it is because some people are nihilists. And that's what they want. They want disintegration. They want complete chaos. Irrationality and excessive control make people nasty and angry. It becomes a vicious cycle. The meaner, more unkind, and nastier people become, the more controls are put on us to supposedly make us nice. That's absolutely right. And you'll see more and more of that. And you'll see that in spades. You'll see that in spades. And the cycle that the left is starting with banning books, the whole idea of canceling people, getting them fired, that is going to come back at them. And it's going to create the cycle of control and even more nastiness, and on and on and on it goes. And that's why one of the reasons the mixed economy is not stable. Now, it can take decades for the mixed economy to become authoritarian. But ultimately, it will become that. Ultimately, that's where it's heading, unless we have a new enlightenment or some kind of renaissance. I'm struggling with Rand's conception of the benevolent universe premise. Wouldn't ambivalent universe be a more objective perspective, in that it is neither cruel nor kind, just neutral? What am I missing? By saying a benevolent universe, Ayn Rand did not say that the universe was kind, good, wonderful. So this is my view of the benevolent universe. And some of you know objectivism better. Will have to evaluate whether this I took from Rand, because I can't remember where I got it from. Maybe I got it from Rand or Leonard Peikoff. Usually anything good, theoretical, I got from them. Man has a particular nature. The universe is what it is. It just is. It's neutral, as you say. Man has a particular nature. He evolved this particular nature. He evolved in ways that allow him to survive and indeed thrive. You can see human beings thriving. We've survived as a species for hundreds of thousands of years, and some of us truly thrive. We have been equipped by evolution with the tools for thriving. We are parts of this universe. We are in tune with this universe, if you will. We evolved out of this universe. We have the basic means to survive, thrive, succeed, and be happy in this universe. All the benevolence universe premise really says, I think, is that given that you have that tool, reason primarily, if you use it, you're going to be successful. The universe is not aligned against you. You are aligned with the universe. You have a tool to manage, survive, and thrive in the universe. You belong, as Jennifer says here, in the universe. You're not a foreign object. You're not something that might go here or might go there. Right? You are a part of it with a tool to thrive in it. And if you exercise that tool, good thing will happen. That's not to deny that accidents can happen, that a meteor could hit tomorrow, that, the whole earth could implode tomorrow if it's hit hard enough by something big enough, right? The universe is not set and not determines your course and not assures your success. It's that you have the tools to assure your success. That's the sense in which a benevolent universe. That if you practice virtue, good things happen. The moral is the practical. The practical is the moral. That's what benevolent universe is capturing. It's not a mystical sense that the universe is friendly. The universe just is. But you're equipped to deal with it. Were you ever attracted to Bugs Bunny when he would dress up as a gay girl bunny? Just kidding. No, never. Never attracted to Bugs Bunny. I really like Bugs Bunny. I find the Bugs Bunny cartoons funny and enjoyable, but never attracted to it. Thank you, Jeff. That is really generous. Here's his question. Procrastination is my mental illness. I wouldn't call it a mental illness. It's a mental weakness. I spent most of my wasted life always preparing to take action, which finally led to irrational self-destruction when nothing came to fruition. You always kick me in the butt. I'm 57. It is never too late. It's absolutely never too late. You're 57. You've got another 30 to 40 years, maybe 50 years. Who knows these days? Kick yourself in the butt and go and do. Act. Engage, pursue, value, love. You've still got this precious thing, this amazingly, stunningly precious thing called life that doesn't last for very long. And then it's over, and it's gone, and there's nothing. And you got to take advantage of every second of it, every moment of it. And, procrastination is a challenge. Many of us suffer from it, and some things I procrastinate. And it's something you have to fight, and you have to just get into the habit of acting. Get in the habit of doing. And remind yourself constantly, the end, it's the doing. The thinking and then the doing. It's what you do in life that matters. All you need is love. Also, with transracialism, changing one's race, becoming the new frontier in the future. Will transracialism? I don't think so. I mean, I really hope that the future is about ignoring race, and that the future is about multiracialism, if that's a term, right? It's in a marriage. It's kids born from people who have different skin colors or whatever you want to call race, right? That's the future. The future is the continuing intermixing of the human genetic code. And it's a beautiful thing. I love to see it, and I think it's going to happen more and more. And ultimately, at some point down the road, nobody will know what race is. Nobody will understand what the concept even referred to, because there's only one race, and that's the human race. And how much of the stuff that gives you darker or lighter skin you have in your body is irrelevant to anything. Irrelevant to moral character, irrelevant to ability. It's irrelevant. So I hope that over time it'll just disappear intellectually and as a manifestation in reality. Melanin. Yes, melanin is the substance in your skin that determines how dark your skin is going to be. It's really, 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 really important. We should judge people based on how much melanin they have in their skin. I mean, it's insanity. It's so stupid. It's hard to believe that it's worth commenting on. Really hard to believe that it's worth commenting on, but there you go. Jeffrey says, read Atlas 4 times and still struggle with Eddie Willis. What is your evaluation of him? I mean, I love Eddie Willis. Eddie is a good guy. He's a smart guy. I mean, he's Dagny's deputy, and he manages, I mean, with difficulty, to somehow run a railroad with very little help when she's not around. He keeps it going. He doesn't let it completely collapse. Now, he doesn't do it with the kind of skill and ability that Dagny has, and he can't grow it the way Dagny has. But he's a skilled person, but he's not a giant. He's just a good guy. And he's not philosophical. Now, I think what's sad about Eddie is, for a variety of reasons, I think, in the novel, John Galt doesn't take him to the valley. I think Galt doesn't take him to the valley primarily because he wants him there to help Dagny. Because he wants Dagny to have some support. I think, right? That's mine. But Eddie belongs in the valley. And Galt likes Eddie. But Eddie's really there to represent the good average person. The smart average person. The non-giant of the intellect and of morality. And what the fate of Eddie is supposed to show us is at the end, even the good guys who are not of great mind depend on the great minds. I mean, Ayn Rand really did believe that our life depends on the great minds. That as good as all of you guys are, you can't fix that train in the middle of nowhere. Francisco probably could. Dagny probably could. John Galt probably could. He's stuck because of that. Burger King UK said on Twitter that women belong in the kitchen as part of a promotion to get more female representation in Burger King restaurants. Oh my God, that is funny. Oh, there's no end to the fun that this nonsense can generate. Who is more controlling on sex, the right or the left? Well, I think in terms of controlling, the right is, right? The right Particularly the religious right. They want you to only have sex with somebody from the opposite sex. They only want you to have sex, certain types of sex. They support sodomy laws. The sodomy laws. I don't know if any of them are on the books anymore, but until a few years ago, there were sodomy laws in a number of states. And sodomy includes oral sex, not just anal sex, but oral sex as well. That's pretty controlling. Big chunk of sexual activity. It's controlling. They want sex only within marriage. That's like super controlling. It's super immoral. They don't want you to have. They don't want you to take the risk of having babies. They want to make getting pregnant as costly as possible. Yeah, Shazbad, oral sex is considered sodomy. You're going to have to reconsider. Now, the left is becoming a lot more controlling. And I wouldn't be surprised if they become more. It is. Sodomy laws ban oral sex, not just anal sex. I'm not sure if sodomy in and of itself means oral sex, but the sodomy laws ban oral sex. Right, TMZ reported, this is, I think, the last super chat, unless somebody jumps in. TMZ reported that the director deliberately redesigned Lola Bunny to remove sexuality to make her strong, as if the two are mutually exclusive. Yeah, right. You're absolutely right. Why is there such a hatred of sexuality lately? There's a hatred, it comes from a lot of different places. There's a hatred of, on the right, there's this perception of women as not being sexual. Men, they're lustful and they're sinful, but women are non-sexual. You see that in Atlas Shrugged, in the relationship between Reardon and his wife. His wife is asexual. Right? Women are supposed to be asexual. Right? And virtuous women are asexual. Virtuous women are virgins, after all. So sex is required, but it's not something women strive to do, at least not virtuous women. On the left, presenting women sexually is viewed as demeaning to women, as if all they are is sex, as if all there is their body. So think about the right condemns the body. It's all about the spirit. So women are, you don't want to view women as sexual because that makes them material. And no, it rejects their spiritual nature. For the left, the spiritual doesn't matter. All that matters is the body. And therefore, if you make women sexual, then that defines them. That's all they are, right? So both object to the sexualization, if you will, of women. I think that's ridiculous. Women, to men, and to some women, are incredibly sexy. And, their bodies are flaunt sex. Right? And there is such a thing as a sexy woman. And we might not always agree on what that is, but there are some universal principles around this, which to some extent Jessica Rabbit represents, right? And there's nothing that is demeaning about that. There's nothing about being sexual that is non-spiritual. There's nothing in presenting a woman as sexual that suggests that she can't be a CEO of a corporation. There's nothing about presenting a woman as being sexual that says that she can't be a philosopher. So there is, on both left and right, a mind-body split. It manifests itself a little differently, but there's a mind-body split on both sides. And both left and right these days reject sexuality. Both reject a certain type of sexuality. The left seems to be rejecting heterosexuals, and the right rejects everything but heterosexuals. The left celebrates the more unusual sexual practices, and the right rejects the more unusual sexual practices. Normal sexual practices are, boring to the left, and the only thing to the right. But there's a certain agreement about their obsession with these things. A psychological scourge on society is the children are not being allowed to form the connection that feeling scared is safe. I mean, I think I know what you mean. I think you mean the children are overprotected today, and that they don't learn how to deal with fear because they're never exposed to it, and they don't test the boundaries of what they can do. They don't test their independence, both physically and intellectually, because particularly kids these days are in a politically correct box. If they step out of this box, it's on social media and it's there forever, and they're condemned forever, and they can be attacked about this forever. So intellectually, they're forced to be in a box. And physically, they're forced to be in a box because, the stuff I did when I was a kid, I'm guilty of this. I don't think I would have gone insane if my kids had done it. Now, the way I grew up is my parents never saw me do this stuff, but teachers saw me do this stuff. Adults saw me do stuff. Jumping and climbing and insane. If I saw kids do it today, I'd be scared for them. But we just did it. We just did it. So it's sad that kids are not experiencing what it means to engage with risk, engage with danger, and see what they can handle and see what they cannot, see what they should fear and see what they should not. And then it turns out they fear everything, and then they become a snowflake generation. What did you like a President Coolidge? A friend told me he thought Biden was Coolidge-esque compared to that noisemaker we had. I see his point, but my friend was drinking. Yeah, it's nonsense. The thing I liked about Coolidge is he basically kept government out of our business. He basically, when there was a recession, he let it just happen. He didn't have a stimulus package. So Biden is the opposite of Coolidge. The $1.9 trillion stimulus package that just passed is opposite of Coolidge, the exact opposite of Coolidge. Now, Biden is quiet as compared to Trump, but that makes him more like Eisenhower, like a middle-of-the-road, compromising, nothing, stand for nothing, do what the mainstream expects and nothing more, and appease the left whenever you can, but nothing too dramatic. Silent Cal was Calvin Coolidge, but his silence wasn't just silence. It was, I don't interfere. I don't get involved. Government should be limited, and he tried to limit government to the extent that he could. All right. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the super chatters. Thank you for supporting the show. That is great. Don't forget that you can. Don't forget, first of all, to like the show before you leave. We've got a lot more viewers than likes, and have had the entire time. So please like the show. We should be way over 100, 130 on the likes. I missed your question, Stephen. Well, you should have asked it again. Oh, there it is. What do you think of the crows in Dumbo? In the theater world, we used to call stereotypes star characters, amalgamations of common personalities exaggerated for fun and comedy. Yeah, I mean, there's probably an offensive element to the crows in Dumbo. I forgot about the crows in Dumbo. It's another book in which you have these. Isn't there one that makes fun of the Beatles? What was the Disney movie where they're birds sitting on the tree branch and the speaking in British accents and making fun of the Beatles? Maybe that's Jungle Book. Yes, Jungle Book. That's right. Okay, so it's offensive, maybe. I don't think it shapes anything. I don't think it shapes people's attitude towards anybody. It's an amazing movie, Dumbo. I mean, it's a little weird because it's got this whole psychedelic theme. I mean, that to me is much more destructive to people's minds, the psychedelic stuff, than anything else. Racist ravens. I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember. I remember there's a scene of Beatles. With the Beatles, there is a scene where they maybe sound like African Americans. I don't know. Anyway, look. These movies stand on their own. They're mostly good movies. They might have. It's like Gone with the Wind. Is Gone with the Wind offensive in some ways? Yeah. Does Gone with the Wind have, in some senses, a far too positive view of the South? Yeah. But is Gone with the Wind basically a good movie that you can learn a lot from about human character and you can really enjoy and get absorbed in? Absolutely. It's not a call to be a racist. It's not a call to violence. In which case, I'd recommend not watching it, right? Again, the issue is not a free speech issue. The issue is, what will a culture accept in conversation, in speech, in debate, in its art? What is the scope? Is it very, very narrow? And we become maybe not legally banned stuff, but culturally banned stuff, and then we become very narrow-minded, very, very limited? Or is it wide, and we accept the fact that some of the point of view being expressed are ridiculous or awful or horrible, and maybe we even shun them as individuals, and maybe we even expect some of those views to be shunned by the culture, but those are really out there. Really ridiculous. And everything else, yeah, we might not like some of it and we'll condemn it morally, but we're not going to expect them just to be shunned completely and shut off. It's what is the cultural willing to accept, willing to engage with. And I think the narrower we make that, the more horrific life becomes and the less freedom we ultimately will have. All right, everybody. Thank you. I don't remember the details of Dumbo, but I love Dumbo. I actually have to admit that, Jungle Book is one of my favorites. One of my favorites. Bye, everybody. See you on Thursday. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Rez, Corey.